I see that the world is finally starting to get what I've been saying for many years. This conflict with Iran, centered around the Strait of Hormuz, is not just about Iran. It is primarily about China and the Cold War that we've been in for greater than a decade that the media has not told you about, that geopolitical leaders have all decided to ignore and never discuss up until very recently, unless you followed me, because I've been talking about this for the last 5 years. While you heard ad nauseum every single day at fever pitch levels that we were on the verge and the cusp of World War III, in reality, we were just watching the unfolding of a Cold War. And if there is one, if not two things that Trump was extremely consistent about between his first term and his second term, was his views on China and Iran. And so, if you have been one of those people that have been consistently confused because the media has kept you that way about what the Trump administration is doing in this second term, this should make it very clear. The entire tariff war approach, the war on the world for tariffs, was all about countering China. China had their tentacles in every single economy, and every tariff was focused on China, on basically creating a virtual tariff Great Wall around China. And while that was happening, we went and kicked out the two companies that out of Hong Kong that controlled both ends of the Panama Canal, and had the Panamanian government kick them out and take control of those ports and declare that they would no longer be a part of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. And now they are a part of the U.S. initiative. And shortly after that, we captured Maduro and essentially took over his government, and now his oil services America's needs. And we also convinced the majority of Central American countries, to include Mexico, to go after the cartels, thus stifling their flow of fentanyl, which was the primary inputs, if not all inputs, were produced by China. And so we essentially kicked out Russia and China and curtailed their ability to kill thousands of American citizens. We then started to set our sights on Cuba, and that is forthcoming, as we then subsequently started to set our sights on Iran, and we are now in that current conflict. And when China gets 20% of their energy resources from these locations that we have secured, then we essentially control a major portion of their energy imports, not to mention that the U.S. has their own energy exports as well. So roughly, all combined, we control almost half of the entire world's energy output. On top of that, and what has largely gone unreported, is the United States moves to court Indonesia, as we now have two agreements with them, one economic and one defensive. So basically, Indonesia has agreed to lower their tariffs by 99%, and consequently, we have done the same. So it's essentially free trade. On top of that, we have a defensive agreement where we can use their airspace without request, and we can, I believe it's without request anyways, but regardless, there's a defensive sharing agreement that has occurred that it favors the United States' position in that part of the world. And the reason why that is important is because Indonesia borders the Malacca Straits and is basically oversees two critical choke points to China, because that's where they get the majority of the flow of their energy through. So not only do we essentially control 20% of the energy imports that they take, but then we control an additional, I don't even know what the percentage is, but it's upwards of 50% or more of their total imports as they come across the Malacca Straits and through Indonesian waters. Now, while all of this is an oversimplification, I'm oversimplifying a lot of this, it's to paint the larger picture of what is currently going on between this essential Cold War between China and the United States. Now, of course, that is also not the only reason we went after Iran, or specifically the IRGC. There is more than one reason to a lot of these moves, but the overarching umbrella, the primary one, is to counter China. So that's where I want people to keep their focus. And the primary reason for that is because beyond the fact that China has said that this is going to be a Chinese century and that they're going to overtake the United States, and that they've made a ton of moves, actual actions to make that a plausible situation, they have also signaled through their military actions and buildup that they are going to take Taiwan. And the reason why that is important is because Taiwan is the linchpin to the entire digital modern economy. So we quite frankly cannot risk that. So even though the probability of them invading Taiwan was actually quite low, we still had to treat that risk, even as low as it was, as a certainty, because the risk of them actually doing so, the outcome was so high. Because on Taiwan is TSMC, which is the only company on Earth that produces the type and size of computer chip that basically fuels every major company in the world as far as the tech sector is concerned. And so overnight, China would either destroy the modern economy or take it over, and fulfilling the destiny that they've preordained themselves. And so there are basically two tracks that could have unfolded. There may have been another, but these are the two primary tracks that could have unfolded. We could have gone down the status quo with open borders, fentanyl crisis, with China inserting themselves in every sector of our economy, slowly turning the global order in their favor, positioning themselves to basically overwhelm the United States, because that was part of their larger strategy, was to basically make sure that we were focused in so many different areas, stretched so thin that once they created the positive conditions for an invasion, that they would actually conduct that invasion, and then the U.S. wouldn't be able to stop them. Or we could have done everything that we're doing now to basically curtail their decision-making calculus, basically his decision-making calculus, to ensure that he basically thinks, you know what, it's never going to be a good idea and that we should never do it, thus never plunging the world into World War III. And so that's the macro agenda that is currently unfolding. Now, will it be successful or not is still under consideration, but I think largely we have been successful.